It's time to talk about a particular map. It's time for many of you to get your first look at the Sultans Ascend, and we do so with a show match, a play all 7 between DeMu and Mista.
Waiting a long time for this, and as you can see, both players are going to be kind of like opposite of the pawns, right? So the pawns are equally split in a way, right? So both of them could be contested by both players, right? Sometimes the players can kind of be spawned towards the pawns more, which means that each one kind of has a back lake. In this spawn, they both have a pawn, like the pawns are on either side, so these docks could get really spicy. There's not a lot of protection for these as well, so early drushes can also potentially take out the dock quite easily before you even have a chance to get an airship out. So excited to see how the players approach this.
Yeah, no, we're talking a little bit about this map. I'm going to be honest, this is my favorite. I think this is one of Biddleland's pieces, and really big shout out to him. I like to tease him, but he really went above and beyond with this. You mentioned kind of mountain clearing flavor. I actually feel like you're almost close to mountain clearing, and compared to that map, things feel a lot more exposed, right? And there's some variance in the way this can spawn. I've seen spawns where essentially both players have a home lake, and then you get the almost 50-50 split, which I'm happy we got here because it means a lot more anarchy and a lot more invasion into the other person's pond.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Scandinavia in AoE 2, which has a very similar vibe where like it's a bit different because the water has like the corridors on the side, but here it just has like these two smaller bulbs, but still similar gameplay, right? Where the both players are going to try and like contest this water, and if you let your opponent get control of both ponds, there's a lot of deep fish there, right? That's 8 deep fish to have access to, so control of this water does matter quite a lot, especially with how some of these civs can play. Juji, for example, can do this insane unit spam on just food sometimes, so they could produce a lot if they get to Castle Age, right? So gotta be careful about those Shaolins, which are a new unit in the game, which quite excited to see if we get there, but...
Well, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Let's dissect
I'm
the
jumping
Civ a
the gun.
little bit
I'm
on
jumping
this
ahead.
opening. Yeah,
I'm jumping ahead.
you're getting ahead. I'm trying to stop
Oh.
myself because my brain is already trekking into fuel age, but we need to explain the openings a bit because Japanese is a whole new ship setting sail in more than one ways. For a start, they're going to look very different on the opening. They have access to the forges, right? Which I keep saying Japanese is my civ, Winston, because I'm sinful forgetting to get my blacksmith upgrades. But luckily, when you play the Japanese, you tend to have enough blacksmiths because they're actually the mining camps. And they only cost 50 wood each. So an absolute joy for someone like me who always fails to tech up.
Yeah, and on top of that, their miners also gather a little bit of stone when they get gold, and a little bit of gold when they get stone. So the flexibility of the mining camp, but the forge gives you a lot of like this extra resource bank to work with, which just makes your transitions a lot smoother, right? You're going to be on 50 stone, you know, maybe by the time you're thinking about, oh, do I want to put a bunch of vills on stone to get a TC up? And if you do a TC build, you know, 20% of 300, you know, you're a little bit closer to an eco tech maybe, or a little bit closer to that first blacksmith tech, which can make all the difference.
Yeah, and you mentioned first blacksmith tech because actually the Japanese start with access to one in the Dark Age. They have 4 levels to their melee tech, offering some crazy builds around light units. So we probably won't see too much of that early on here due to the fishing. And there's a really good reason why Mr. went for the fishing, right? This civ has one critical, simple, but effective perk compared to other civs, and that's those cheaper fishing boats.
Yeah, the cheaper fishing boats go a really long way, right? It's one of their few differentiators on water. I mean, otherwise they are closer to normal until Imperial Age, where they get a unique cannon ship, right? But
Yep.
they, with that cheaper fishing boom, they can support the fish boom with fewer. They can support the fish boom with fewer villagers, right?
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because usually it's like, oh, do I put 5 or 6 on wood to make sure that my dock isn't idle? But with Japanese, you can do it with like maybe 3 or 4, right, and get away with it, and that gives you a big advantage in terms of your feudal timings, right?
Oh, I was so surprised when I played it. I thought it was an underwhelming advantage, and then when it plays out, like just a little bit of wood adds up fast. Now let's go through these landmarks first. We need to quickly address DeMu's because that one's already up. And it's up for a good reason because in the Tang Dynasty, he gets I believe it's a 15% discount on his tech ups via Aegis. And he's gone for the Meditation Gardens, which is a little bit controversial at the moment. A lot of people think that this particular landmark might be a bit overpowered. And you'll see why right there. Passive resources. A lot of it.
Especially on certain maps, this is quite a low food generation, actually. Only 2 berries in range of it, so it's not the most resources you can get. This landmark has a downside where if the opponent has up to 10 units nearby, you can completely shut off the landmark, right? So each unit will reduce its income by 10%, and that's just like straight up additive. So like 10 units nearby, and this unit and this landmark won't generate resources anymore. But on certain maps, especially this one, a couple of the newer maps as well have this kind of spawn where everything's really close like this, and this is where this landmark can really shine, because it's really hard to attack this one, right? How do you get in radius of it? It's quite difficult.
And you'd have to sit there, right? You essentially have to camp there. So unless there's an added benefit, like some people mention scout to take away 10%, but then you're not scouting, you're not getting sheep. And it feels like we're having a machine gun through, and we have for good reason. You're seeing this right. Mr. did go for the Coca Township, a personal favorite of both of us, I believe. And that's why you're seeing the arrival of the Shinobi on the field.
Yeah, they feature these 3 cool abilities. So Spy, you transform into the villager that you target. So or the unit, a villager of the player color that you target with the ability. So you can kind of become anyone in a big team game or free-for-all. And it lets you kind of be a little bit sneaky. Of course, there's counterplay if you go too close to a scout or a tower or TC, it will reveal you. But similar to the Musafati stealth, right? But here, it's not the most useful in a 1v1 like this, where it's super obvious what you're doing, especially, a high-level player like DeMu is going to realize that these villagers aren't his, but their other 2 abilities add a lot of value as well. There's the Sabotage and the Blink, which we can get into a bit, but yeah, it's quite strong.
There's a lot of it is strong. I think the thought here for Mr. is the Sabotage is very strong, right? Because it does, I believe it's is it 200 damage across 30 seconds. But the bigger deal is it disables a production on a building. So you can use it on Raxes. More importantly, for this map, he could have used it on docks. Unfortunately for Mr., DeMu didn't play into that. Instead, he rushed up. And just to round it out, the Shunshin is a short-range blink here. He might even look to use it. I think you could try to use it to get the gap closed here for good reason, because... Do they get the bonus damage against these Shaolin monks? They're considered a melee unit, right? So he should be getting the +4 damage, doing like, what, 25 at this point? Oh, wait, okay, 24, because he didn't even get the range melee damage upgrade. So we'll get the kill. Yeah. That's quite pricey, because they cost 200 food each. But we'll be able to immediately fix this, because DeMu has another Shaolin monk. And I think this is a good segue to talk about those monks, because DeMu already went into Castle Age. Yeah, this civ has some ridiculous timings, folks.
It's funny, actually. I played this matchup against Wham last night. Not in a 1v1, in a team game. But what I did with the Shinobi was I used Sabotage on the Shaolin Monastery. So he didn't get the monks out for quite a while. It didn't end up working, right? It got cleaned up by his teammate, right? But it was funny in the moment. I was like, wait, that's actually a pretty cool way of stopping the fast castle build. But that's a lot of ills being pulled to take down that outpost. It is not long for this world. I think the intention was to delay the food income, and therefore delay the Shaolin monks, because that's his only access to food, right? So if DeMu got pushed off the food, these Shaolin monks become, like, you can't keep producing them. So, like, his whole economy, he's kind of gambling on this all-in as he collects the relics, gets map control, maybe tries to grab the sacred sites in the north and the south.
Yes, and these are bloody strong units, by the way. The Shaolin monks have a real big kicker to them. They are your religious unit, but they only cost food, which is incredible in the hyper late game when there's no wood or gold left. And they're good fighters, right? Because they have some unique abilities to them. I think they have like 15 base damage, something like 170 health. And then on top of that, they have a hardened ability that reduces damage they take from ranged attacks. Not to mention the fact that tags mean there's no clear counter, except a few special types of units.
Yeah, exactly. They're a very well-rounded unit. They just cost quite a lot of food, 200 food to produce here. So DeMu is investing basically his entire economy, 400 food per minute right now, into producing these monks, right? But we'll see the Shinobi. This is putting on a little show for us, not getting that much value out of killing them, running it down the blink to catch up. This Shaolin monk is not long for this world. He's trying to recover, gets the long-range dagger there. And down he goes. You can see this is a fun, unique unit matchup. Not one you're going to see often, I think, but quite fun to see. And yeah, Mista being a little house there. More farmhouses needed on the way.
That's the thing about a lot of these new civs. Is like, I think there's a lot of extra micro layers in them that might distract people, make them miss housing. Like you just saw there, you've got the blink. We went to the sabotage. There's a disguise. There's going to be other civs we're going to see. Even with the Shushi, I've said in the late game, like you're going to actually have to dedicate a hotkey just for a specific landmark because of the toggling you need to do. So there's quite I think there's a very big skill ceiling to these new civs. Like they are accessible in a cool way, but there's a lot to be mastered as well, even compared to the OG civs. Oh,
Yeah, and
another one down.
it's going to be quite tricky to take down these shallow monks with just an outpost, right? They can retreat and just heal up, and they have quite a lot of durability built in. And like you said, that ability to just reduce their incoming range damage is quite strong. But here comes some horsemen with a couple shinobis.
It's kind of interesting, actually. I wonder if Mister read the body of Iron, because a really strong play for the Japanese at this stage in the game to counter this raw play would have been to maybe consider going into like some samurais instead. But I guess with the horseman, at least, he can kind of peel. He doesn't have to stick next to his opponent. And he is going to be going up now with the floating gate. Now, we talked about this before, Winston. We've had discussions about this. This to me is still just the go-to tier 3 landmark for me. Such an incredible tool with a unique little gift for you upon tech up.
Sorry, what was the question? My bad.
This is where you nerd out about the Yorishiro.
Oh yeah, so the Yoshiro basically they can be put into various buildings, right? And they give you a nice bonus on any on depending on the type of building it is. So resource drop off buildings will give you resources infinitely for the rest of the game, based on which building you put in. So the forge gives you gold, the farmhouse gives you food, and and the lumber camp will give you some wood per minute for the rest of the game. So where you want to put these depends on what kind of strategy, what kind of situation you're in, and you're just going to keep getting them as the game goes on. So it's up to you as the Japanese player in this situation to keep kind of deciding, okay, do I need a better military building? Do I need or resource income? And here it looks like one of the important counterplay elements of the Yorishiro is that you can just burn the buildings down. It looks like DeMu's going to walk by. I think he's now spotted that these two forges have them inside. He's going to be going for the farmhouse. Maybe misreading where this little indicator is. Yeah, there's the little relic right there on the side. I think he thinks he's taking out a Yorishiro, but that is in the forge and not in this farmhouse. But still, going to potentially house Mista here.
Oh, and now, Mister, this is really big. He just got into the bannerman, which means all these horsemen just got a 15% increase to their damage. And also, he can just tank with that samurai warrior on the front side. So, should be a cleanup of the monks out from DeMu, but this is all a distraction. We can see at home. He's happily teching off to his heart's content. He's going to get the other Age 2 landmark, which means he's now looking for an eco transition, as the Song Dynasty does give you a 40% wood discount off of, I believe it's all eco-based buildings, right?
Yeah, on non-military buildings, right? So
Yes.
here the barracks are not discounted, but with the Jiangnan Tower, every military production building that you build will generate kind of a free unit from the tower. So it's really good for these transitions. And you can see it at work here. He's like, oh, I'm going to need some spearmen to deal with my opponent who's making a bunch of cav. And boom, you built 3 barracks, and now he has 3 spearmen. We'll see when DeMu realizes they're there. He does. Good. I was hoping he didn't forget about them for forever. And here it comes. Now, interestingly, about Mista's knights here, you'll notice a small bar above their heads. That is the deflective armor charge. So they will block one attack, regardless if it's melee or ranged, and that only recharges out of combat. So it kind of promotes some sort of like poke micro, where you want to go in, take a little damage, and retreat. It's really effective on these knights because you can run in, take like a tower hit, and it just gives you a little more effective HP. The longer you keep this unit alive, generally the more value you're going to get out of that bonus. You do pay a little more gold for that luxury, but it is quite potent.
It's incredibly strong in this matchup as well, right? Like this, because the thing is, you can get access to those in Feudal Age, right? Because it's based on the bannerman points, which means you have to upgrade your town centers. You spend 300 stone for the level 1 to upgrade them to a Daimyo Manor, and by doing that, you will get given these bannerman points. And bannerman are important because they give a plus 15% damage buff to nearby units of the same type, but they also have that edge of, as I just highlighted, you can sometimes get access rather to units ahead of time. And I think that's really cool up against Yuji and Chinese, because that deflect shot, you mentioned it, it doesn't matter what the damage value would have been, it blocks that shot, right? So very effective at diving against hand cannon sleds.
It's also it's surprisingly effective against spearmen as well, because if you don't charge into spear wall, you can run in and you can trade that first hit and you don't take damage. So it kind of it furthers that relationship. You can see that spearman actually did almost no damage. I think the only damage that was dealt there was from the town center, right? Because it shot one of the knights after the spearman hit. So, like, already right there, great trade for Mista. Right now, though, his economy is really starting to skyrocket, right? The pawns have been working for him in his favor quite a lot. And one of the issues with Yuji that you have, very similar to normal China, is that this granary setup is really big, right? You're going to need a lot of space
By the way, when he does get in those granaries, they're going to be super effective. I didn't notice he'd gone for the tier 3 already. So there's 3 levels to the Japanese TCs. You can get the level 1 for 300 stone, level 2 is 600 stone, and then the final one's 1200 stone. And for that, the first one gives you 1 extra bannerman point. The second one gives you, I believe it's 2 extra banner points, and then the third one gives you 3 extra banner points. On top of that, you may have just seen that he decided to initiate his own rocket program to make even Elon Musk envious. That is another perk of upgrading this all the way. He now has a giant-ass rocket launcher inside that castle that will pretty much one-hit any of these units.
An important note, though, for Mista is that as the Japanese, he doesn't have access to keeps in the Castle Age. They get the castle in Imp, right? So it's a little bit harder to get to. It's a unique defensive building in that it has that rocket as well, but you're going to be reliant on these town centers defensively. So that rocket is going to be clutch for Mista to defend this front of his base. Now, because he's on this fishing eco, he's not actually benefiting from one of the major elements of the town center upgrade, which is that it improves your farming, and it improves your farming dramatically. It improves it so much that like Japanese don't even have the normal food upgrades, right? they just have the 75% aura on their TC, and it's quite a large aura, about the range of the TC. So it's going to give you a lot of space to work with. But yeah, it's interesting that he went for all 3 tiers because it's quite expensive. But I guess the rocket might have been the worthwhile element.
Yes.
And extra bannerman, although I don't know how much he's using it. I think he has 2 there. I'm not sure.
I mean, the rocket. He's got 3 bannermen. And he's got 3 bannerman cavalry, and I think he's got 2 for the infantry that he's now transitioning into. So if you guys look at the top, you can see those banners. They represent the different classes of bannermen. So he's almost capped out on what he can have, and that's important, by the way, because he's prepping a samurai transition. If he didn't have the infantry bannerman, then he wouldn't be able to also buff up the samurai's damage by +1. So there you go. You got your Uma bannerman, which are going to be for the stables, and you got the katana bannerman from the racks. And by the way, that won't just buff up the damage of the samurai warriors. It'll also affect the onobugisha or the spearmen that you'd also build out of the racks.
And the shinobi. Don't forget the shinobi.
Of course. How could I forget the glorious shinobi? How outplaced would you feel as a samurai? It's like, this is dishonorable, and it's just like 50 shinobi around.
Yeah. It's like, my job is to make you proud. So an interesting tech that he has gotten as well is, I believe, did he get Odachi on these? Can we click on one of these?
I hope so.
I think we saw it. And that's a very potent upgrade for these samurai. If you hover their damage.
You can see the damage in... Yeah, so he's got the Odachi. If you zoom in, you can even see it visually, right? Because they changed weapons. They usually have the... Was it the Naginata they usually have before the Odachi?
At least so, yes.
Yes. So they've gone for a big-ass sword. And that sword is incredibly powerful, by the way. I think it's like one of the best techs out of all the ones the Japanese have.
Yeah, it's really useful for supporting any cavalry play you have because it's going to give your samurai that bonus infantry, which is good in, man-at-arm versus man-at-arm. In your case, samurai versus man-at-arm, or here it would be samurai versus palace guards. It could also be quite good against the spearman mass that Demu's built up. 42 spearmen on the field. Whew. And he's going to be protecting that trebuchet, and the siege workshop might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I think
that's going to need to get some stringholds out.
Just about survive the shot. These are trebs, they're not the quickest attacking. I mean, another crazy thing about the Adachi is, you mentioned spearmen, you mentioned palace guard, but crossbows and archers also count as infantry. So I've seen these units clean up ranged battalions as well. And we're going to see them clean up in this fight. A charge immediately in. Now he has got some of the Shaolin monks on the front side, but they're getting clapped pretty fast. And the problem here is even if you snipe out the bannerman, the aura is going to remain because they're going to drop a flag on the ground that lasts for, I believe it's 25 seconds. Wrap around now from the cavalry onto the trebuchets. A quick attempt to repair him from DeMu, but looks like a little bit too much damage in the siege. So good cleanup there from Mista. And well, now that he's done with the front line, he can move on to the back. And this is dangerous territory because DeMu, he did set up his granaries in front of his base.
You have to wonder if not contesting the water at all was worth it for DeMu in this game. As you can see now, his farms are going to be pressured, and there's just this huge, massive units. Like, this has all been propelled by the water, right? So these samurai, so many samurai on the field, and all with these unique upgrades, and Japanese samurai have all the bonus damage, all their stacking, like, really is an infantry civ at heart, right? And here they come, and it's scary here if you're DeMu. These units are not easy to take down. Oh boy.
I described him as zerging, and he's zerging right now, by the way. It's not just samurai anymore. You added in the Ona Bugisha. We don't even get to talk about them. We'll have to do it in the post-game because GG gets called. Strong opening coming out from Mista. Let me know what you guys thought of these two civs on each side. I think DeMu, it's quite interesting. He took a full landlocked approach. He was clearly, by the looks of it, trying to utilize that fast tech up you get with the Zhuji, because you still have the quick build speed of the Chinese, right? And then on top of that, the Tang Dynasty gives you the 15% discount at landmarks. But I don't know if it was kind of maybe a mistrick not playing the fishing. Obviously, these players are only now getting hands-on. I don't know if DeMu knows how strong the fishing is there, or if he felt that it was kind of impossible to contest the Japanese in that area.